need to fix that. Oh, hello everyone. You know, there are many hidden gems out there that really deserve a second look, and one of them is Kid Icarus Uprising. Not just because it's a bit too difficult to obtain, but also because it's very fun. The game is a very, very weird sequel, not just because it took a bit too long to be released, but also because of its difference in really just gameplay and art style. So, since the game is, how do I say it, a bit too unobtainable, it is very difficult for many people to even think of getting it. Not just because it's difficult to find, but also because of its ludicrous prices. Thankfully, I was able to find one for almost nothing. So, how about we do something a bit too fun, and well, let's check it out and see if it's even worth my money or this trip. So, let's see.
No other Nintendo series has been more abandoned than Kid Icarus. Quote me on that. The original Kid Icarus series was released back in 1986, and it was probably quite a scene to behold, considering that the series creator, Toru Osawa, was its sole developer for quite a while. Up until his friend Yoshio Sakamoto saw that Toru only had the running and shooting mechanics done, so he decided to help out by recruiting the Metroid team to help in finishing the game. Considering how tight the development team were on time, they had to pull all-nighters, and 3 months of straight work, they pretty much lived in the Nintendo offices, setting up cardboard on the floor as beds, and losing track of time. But thankfully, that didn't stop them from finishing the game on time, and with how the game came out, it was pretty much worth it. The story is also quite simple. A young angel named Pit is trapped in the underworld and is contacted by the goddess of light, Palutena. To find the 3 sacred treasures he must equip to defeat Medusa to save Palutena and the overworld. The game succeeded, selling about 1.7 million units. Yeah, it wasn't Mario levels of success, let alone Pokemon, but it was enough to warrant a sequel, even if it would only come out for a handheld, that being the Game Boy, which is a trend that'll continue for the series. The return of my boy Pit wasn't in the form of a third Kid Icarus game, but in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. His first appearance in a Smash game was actually in the form of a trophy in Melee, and
it's just a smidge different.
I like how with Ice Climbers, it's basically, yeah, this is what they would look like if they were in 3D. But with the one character who also hasn't had a game since the 80s according to the Japanese and nearly had a game in the SNES, he looks like he never went to MIA. This was a drastic change, and really in a way, he now feels like a creation of Smash Bros. Creator Masahiro Sakurai rather than Toru Osawa's in the modern incarnation in both redesign as well as gameplay. Osawa actually really loved it and approved it, which reminds me. In mid-2008, after completing Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Masahiro Sakurai was invited by then-president of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, to have a private lunch together, which he accepted. In that, Iwata revealed to Sakurai that the company is working on a brand new portable system, but he wasn't sure if it was able to have 3D capabilities without the need of glasses to assist. Apparently, he was the only person outside of the company to know about the still in development 3DS, and he was told for 2 reasons. One was to get Sakurai's input on the console, and the second was to request a game for it. Sakurai was confused as to why, out of all the developers he could have contacted for this, he's the one Iwata chose, but what he does know is that he was very likely told this ahead of time so he could create a launch title for the 3DS. For that task, he decided it'd be best to create a shooter to give the audience something different, as well as to demonstrate the 3D capabilities of the 3DS, as well as other gimmicks in the console. Sakurai was thinking of using an already existing Nintendo IP, and one contender was Star Fox, but he felt it wasn't a good fit with some of the flying and shooting mechanics they wanted to implement. So he decided to go with Kid Icarus, but they were very likely going at it blind because in 2009, when Sakurai saw a limited start development on a new installment, 3DS development kits weren't yet available. So the team started developing the game on PC and Wii until Nintendo had created them. The game would be in development for 4 years, and many fans were excited for the brand new installment in the series, as well as the new 3DS console. Yeah, the game missed the launch date, but don't worry because a year later we would finally get Kid Icarus Uprising with a well-deserved 3DS price cut, and well, let's see how it holds up to the hype. We immediately blast off with a grandiose, revamped version of the original Kid Icarus theme with all its old glory and catchiness still intact with an amazing demo of the game. The game is split into 25 chapters, with 24 of them being split into 2 parts. Land and aerial battles. The first half of each of the 24 chapters is an aerial battle, with them all being different from one another, thankfully. The aerial battles are a breeze in both shooting and hitting enemies. They also require less control since flying to a destination is being done for you. I also noticed that the weapons you use will shoot more rapidly and in defeating bigger enemies, and obstacles are much easier. The land battles are a bit slower and the weapons you use don't shoot as rapidly like an aerial. But the use of melee attacks will become more common either because it's the only way to defeat an enemy, or for the hell of it. Also, since the 3DS lacks a second joystick to move the camera around, the second screen will be used to aim and for directional assist. But man, I'm not a big fan of the controls. Look, don't get me wrong. The control layout is usable, but it is just so awkward to play since the controls of the 3DS are too close to each other, especially the left trigger and the joystick. So the way you control Pit is quite simple. The left trigger shoots projectiles like this, the joystick is to control Pit's movements, whether it be in the sky or land, and then you use the second screen to aim at the enemy. And in land it works overtime for camera movement. Oh, you bought yourself this game for $80 and lost your 3DS pen and have no stylus to replace that? Well, you better use that finger and make sure you press hard enough on that screen or else you'll have a, how do I put it? Shit experience.
Oh yeah, I also found myself moving Pit either clockwise or counterclockwise to evade enemies or attacks or anything from the enemies. And so I assume that's probably more of a universal technique. So there's a bit of something for you.
Now, the difficulty of the game is also quite different from others, since you can freely change it in every chapter. You can also play Chapter 1 at the highest difficulty possible and play the 25th at the lowest. But that's not where the whole thing ends, mind you, since you'll also have to sacrifice something to gain something. So if you decide to set the intensity of a chapter at 9, you'll have to cough up a huge amount of hearts, and the same goes for the other way around at 0. But the price is much lower. You're not just spending hearts to gain more access to a certain intensity. Oh no, you're spending them to gain more access to treasure chests, which will contain better weapons, and you'll even gain more hearts. Just remember that if you die and retry, the intensity will go down. Now, the game takes place 25 years after the events of the first one. Medusa is somehow resurrected and vows to conquer the overworld, leading to Palutena sending in Pit to take care of Medusa and her forces. In each chapter, Pit will have to defeat a different enemy sent out by Medusa, who is actually controlled by Hades. Early on in the story, Viridi, the goddess of nature, is angry at the devastation caused by the humans themselves due to the spreading of a rumor that the Wish Seed was taken, opening up two fronts for Pit and Palutena, who now have to stop Viridi from eradicating all of humanity. That is until she opens up her trusty Italian war tactics handbook and switches sides to fight alongside Palutena. For the moment. Now, there's nothing but darkness, and there's this ring in the center. You may be wondering what it is. But well, congratulations, you're in a 3-year time skip where Pit awakens as a ring and is able to regain his soulless body with the help of a human named Magnus. After winning all that, Pit tries to go to Angel Land. Such a stupid name. To try and find Palutena, but then he finds out that, well, she's being controlled. Viridi helps Pit to get the lightning cherry to break through Palutena's force field to save her and stop her war on humanity. After getting the 3 sacred treasures, they are now destroyed by Hades, and so now he must go and get a new one to be able to defeat him, and oh my, is the 3 Trials chapter quite a difficult one. By the way, it's actually a mech warrior armor. Long story short, Pit must pass Dinto's 3 trials and you'll be revisiting some old bosses to advance to defeat the main boss, and prove your worthiness to wield the new sacred treasures. Now with the brand spanking new great sacred treasures, Pit is ready to face off against Hades. It's a difficult fight that destroys a majority of the new treasures.
Dintos must be real angry when he heard about that.
With Pit's sure annihilation, Medusa helps him by giving him a chance to shoot the gun at Hades. After all that, Viridi decides to be Viridi.
Not to rain on your parade, but now we're back to the real problem.
What's that?
Humans!
Well, time to talk about the characters, but before we get into that, I will have to clarify that I'm only going to be talking about the main characters such as Pit, Viridi, and Hades. So pretty much the antagonist, protagonist, and anything in between. So that means no Twin Bellows or Mono Eyes. Well, not yet anyways.
Pit is the main character you'll be controlling, except for chapter 22. For the entire game, he is the captain of the overworld army and
Lady Palutena!
the most loyal servant. Pit is also unable to fly without the 5-minute assistance of Palutena, and sometimes Viridi, because of him burning his wings and myths and monsters. He is also the only annoyingly cheerful character in the entire game, even on the battlefield. I like him. Now, Pit 2 is the physical manifestation of Pit's repressed feelings, and he was created with the mirror of truth Pandora used on Pit. He usually is portrayed as mean-spirited and angry, but has a soft side like when Pit burned his wings and going as far as to help him recuperate them. I liked our Pit, to be honest. If anyone else made this game, he would be a one-note angry emo fanfuck for shits and giggles. But since Sony isn't writing this, his character changes to a point that he becomes an ally of Pit's. Also in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, he also reveals to Pit and Palutena that he has become an officer of Viridi's forces of nature. Palutena is the goddess of light and ruler of Angel Land. She is pretty much Pit's guide through most chapters and gives you some aid and advice as well, even controlling his flight. She is also hilariously mischievous, like when she tricked Pit by giving him a potion that aggressively attracts a Hedra head that tries to eat him. And he's also quite playful with him. You do get to fight her in chapter 20, and that's because she is under the control of the Chaos Ken. Now for Viridi, the goddess of nature, and let's just cut to the chase. She hates humanity and wants to eradicate it. Surprise, surprise, the goddess of nature hates humanity due to their exploitation of her realm. Who would have thought? Anyways, she introduces herself in chapter 16 and appears to be evil due to her contradicting views with Palutena. But like Italy, she switches sides during the Aurum invasion, and then at the end, she goes back to what she meant to do at the very beginning. Pretty much, she isn't a hero nor a villain. There you go. Now, Medusa is the big baddie in the game. Well, was is the best way of saying it, since it was revealed that she was merely resurrected and used as a decoy to distract Pit and Palutena so the real evil plan can go into effect. So she is very sinister and vengeful, the exact opposite of Palutena. Her vengeful nature is reserved just for the power duo, which is funny when you consider that she ends up helping Pit and Palutena at the end by attacking Hades. But whatever, anything helps to defeat Hades. Pandora, Pandora, Pandora. Well, let's start. Fun fact, Pandora is actually a human that opened that special box. Anyway, she plays a small yet important role in the game, and that one is the creation of Darkness. And small that she disappears in chapter 5 and reappears in chapter 22, so she doesn't have much of a role. She is also smart, or lucky, considering that she put up with being used by Dark Pit for flight, so one day very hopefully she swears he knew he would unknowingly take her to the Rewind Spring. Oh yeah, she has 2 forms, and those are her ghostly form and Amazon form. Now it's time for Big Daddy, here he is. While Medusa looked to be the true villain, it is actually Hades and blah 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 blah. You already know, so let's go to the rest. Hades is kind of like Palutena, but with an evil twist, playful and mischievous. He is the hardest of all the villains, and one you fight and lose against repeatedly. Hell, both sacred treasures get obliterated by the man, and even his stomach and heart are quite a chore to battle. Yes, you get to fight his actual heart. So pretty much what happens is that Pit gets swallowed by Hades, and now you have to defeat his heart to get him out. Those were some of the weirdest ways I could have put those words together.
I love this game, even with its horrendous button layout. And I also love it because it's very entertaining, not just in its gameplay, but also in its hilarity and all the funny little humor thrown into it. And the characters are fucking amazing. And by a mile, I will say it is much better than the original, and also of Myth and Monsters. Sadly, I do think this might be the only game that we might get with this character. And I hope that's not true, but at the same time, I don't think that's possible. Just look at Nintendo's track record with dead franchises. But I will admit that the little dialogue with Dark Pit and Smash did give me a little bit of hope that there might be a possibility of a sequel or a spin-off to Uprising. So, only God knows, and I hope he gives us another one. So, I hope this was a bit of something, and I hope this was a bit interesting for you. If it wasn't, oh well, it was for me. And now I have to run away, as many times and many crimes have been done with this very interesting product that I have to run away with. So, I hope this was interesting, and have a good one.
Life is for the living. Don't sit around in your ass, smoke the grass. That stuff went out a long time ago. Life is for the living. I thought you wanted to see how it would be when you're in shape and your head plugs into life.